The noise was so loud, like you were at a fair, a ride, something that, like it was going to crash. And we stopped because we were getting closer to go underneath it. And all of a sudden, it just fell right before our eyes.
Yeah.
Well, you heard it right there. We continue to follow this breaking news. A massive fire shutting down Tempe Town Lake. A train derailed earlier this morning, causing that bridge to partially collapse. It is something we've been following since shortly after 6 o'clock this morning. And 3 hours later, firefighters continue to race to try to put that fire out.
And still to really figure out exactly how they're going to strategize dealing with this because of all of the risks involved with the water there. Traffic is impacted in the area, of course, as is the air quality. We have team coverage. Let's begin with Bruce flying over the scene as he has been for the last several hours. Did a stop to refuel and has given us just the most dramatic images of this incredible incident, an iconic spot for us and now dramatically changed.
Yeah, an unbelievable scene this morning here from the Lions Roofing News Chopper. Let's go through some of the video. Jerry Ferguson, our chief photographer here at Chopper Guy, has done a great job all morning long. The air traffic controllers have been amazing with us, allowing us and directing jets away from the fire. So we were right in the middle of all of this. And here's a shot looking straight down that shows you the tanker cars that collapsed from the trestle when it basically collapsed right onto the Rio Salado Parkway there. That's going to be there for a while. Our early morning shots, I'm sure you've seen those, hopefully, folks, that the whole thing was on fire in that area except for these tanker cars, which thankfully, I don't know what is in those tanker cars, but if it was flammable, we'd be talking about a whole different story right now. Thankfully, those did not burst into flames, and when we arrived there, we saw the Tempe Fire Department arriving just as we did. We were there immediately when Bobby Joe, our assignment editor, called us to get in the air quickly and get down there, and they pulled up with all their heavy apparatus, their ladder trucks, and all of a sudden we saw them jump back into the trucks and move away. I think when they saw those tankers, they had the same feeling that we had. We don't know what is in those tankers yet. We're going to have to look at the manifest from the train company, the railroad, and see what was in there, but they moved away safely. They actually got on with the air traffic controllers and asked them to move us away because we were in there pretty close and we didn't know what they had, so we moved away as well, moved up high and away, and that's how we got these shots. So that's what it looks like from the Lions Roofing News Shopper. And Javi, it's been an amazing morning, everybody. I want to thank everybody down at the station for doing such a great job covering this. Everybody on the ground, everybody in the station, everybody in sub-control, everyone's done an awesome job to bring this story to the folks. And Tempe is basically closed down around the Tempe Town Lake. The lake is closed, the bridge is closed, everything's closed down there, so you won't be able to get into the Tempe area, the downtown Tempe area, for quite a while. And the 202 actually is closed as well for Gina. So there you go from the Lions Roofing News Shopper. I'll send it back downstairs to you guys.
Thanks, Bruce, and we couldn't have done it without you guys in the Lions Roofing News Shopper, so we appreciate all your hard work this morning. All right, joining us on the phone right now is Sergeant Cameron Lee with DPS, and obviously where that fire is butts up against the 202 right there, so this causes a whole monkey wrench into your guys' plans. Where do you go from there when you find out initially what happened, Sergeant?
Yeah, so, just after 6:30, after this happened, we started having issues right away with people actually pulling over and taking photos. So stopping on the freeway just to take photos of this thing that was burning. We see this oftentimes during the Tempe Town Lake fireworks and things like that. We had the same issues. Just before 7, we heard from Tempe Fire that they wanted us to shut this thing down. So working with ADA, we essentially now have the 202 completely closed both directions from State Route 143 all the way to the Loop 101 interchange. You're not getting anywhere in between there. And then we've sent probably at least 22, 23 resources to assist Tempe on the surface streets locally with traffic control, blocking off streets, and getting people out of there, routed away from this fire so the Tempe Fire can do what they need to do.
As far as that closure, do we know how long it'll be closed, or is it that to be determined depending on what they find within the hazardous material?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to wait to get the call from Tempe Fire that they feel that the scene is clear enough that we can open the 202. So we're not going to give any type of time frame on that. this is one of those situations where public safety really comes together on the fire and law enforcement side, working almost seamlessly. We train for all kinds of things, but I don't know that anyone has trained for this particular incident, but we find a way to get it done. So we're going to take the lead from Tempe Fire and wait for them to let us know, hey, everything's clear, go ahead and open traffic back.
All right, well, great job getting in there and getting them cleared out and everybody safe. So we appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Department of Public Safety, absolutely. I don't think there's anybody who has imagined a scenario quite like what we're dealing with today in Tempe. In particular, imagine if this is your city. Let's check in with Erin now, who is speaking to the mayor of Tempe, very new to this position, and what a challenge to have to deal with right now.
Yeah, you could say it's been a busy couple of first months before Mayor Corey Woods, but this has really been a collaborative effort out here fighting this fire, but also working to keep people in the community safe. And I want to go ahead and bring in Mayor Woods. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. First of all, just give us a rundown of how your office is working with the operation out here to help people in the community.
So the Tempe Fire and Medical Rescue crews, as well as our police department, have been on the scene since early this morning. They are really actively trying to survey the damage and find out exactly what happened, and also make sure that people are safe. That's been our number one goal, is to make sure that there isn't any loss of life, and currently there's been no reported loss of life, so that is the most important thing to us. And of course, they're just trying to make sure that we know exactly what happened and we can report to our residents what's going on. So that's been our number one goal, and the number one goal for my office this morning.
And talk about just addressing the residents. We see this is a very active area of the community. People running, biking, walking. What would you like to say to them right now during this ongoing situation?
So this is absolutely typically a very active part of town. But what we're telling people right now is please don't come down to the area. With all of the traffic and everything from the fire and medical rescue crews trying to do their jobs, we just have to make sure that we allow them the space and the room to do those jobs. So between the traffic and people working diligently to address this situation, and also because of the fire, whatever that's out there too, releasing carcinogens into the air due to the smoke, we're definitely asking people to remain out of this area for the time being until we can really get the situation addressed.
And speaking of getting the situation addressed, we know that Tempe Fire is working with Union Pacific to really identify what is on those train cars to knock out these flames. Has your office been in contact with Union Pacific?
So we definitely have a partnership, and we try to work together on situations like this. It is one of their railroads, but we definitely want to make sure that, given the fact that it comes through Tempe, that we always have a strong relationship. So far, we haven't found that there's any kind of toxic chemicals or anything of that nature on any of these trains. But at the same time, we're still actively surveying a scene here. So we just want to make sure that we let people understand, while we haven't found any evidence of that up to this point, they still need to do everything they can to avoid this area so the crews down here can do their jobs.
Thank you so much, Mayor Woods. And guys, that's the main point that emergency crews and officials out here want to point out. They have a radius set up, so this area is pretty much evacuated, but we know a lot of people live out here. But if you do not have to be in this area, just simply stay away. And coming up in a 9:30 hour, we're going to hear to some people who had some very close calls to this bridge catching on fire, this derailment. And one lady was shaken up and almost brought to tears. And I'll send it back to you in the studio.
Yeah, Ernie, I'm out here at the scene where we've been for several hours now. Lakeshore Drive over here, Lakeside Drive on the Rio Salado, where you can see crews here still getting an overview of what they are going to do with this fire. For the most part, they finally started to put water onto that last cart, which had the stack of wood on it. Also, Union Pacific workers are seen walking in and out of these carts, maybe trying to get ready to detach them from the train itself. But earlier today, when we first pulled up to the scene, we caught up to the Davises. They were one of the first people that started to shoot video after they heard a snap, a crackle, and explosion. This is Doyle Davis's video you see here as he's walking up, and you could see the train derailed in this area, but it was the sights, the sounds that scared him the most.
We were nearly feet from crossing underneath the bridge, and my husband says, that doesn't sound good. The noise was so loud, like you were at a fair, you know, a ride, something that, like it was going to crash. And we stopped because we were getting closer to go underneath it. And all of a sudden, it just fell right before our eyes. Yeah. We literally witnessed it. It was very scary.
Yeah, scary for most. Now, this was a 3-alarm is what they called it, about 95 personnel altogether. That's 4 engines, 2 ladders. You can see one ladder still hard at work. This is the first time you see them really not pouring any water. They're just doing an overlook, Heidi, as to what they do here. One of the big questions they need to ask here, I spoke with one gentleman who lives right behind me. He said that he had noticed they had been working on that particular spot of the bridge not so long ago. As a matter of fact, he said as of this morning, before this happened, there were still some railroad ties right next to it.
Oh, wow, Gibby, that is interesting information there from that perspective. We're on the other side of that bridge right now. We're on the corner of Mill and the Rio Salado Parkway. A few people, as you can see, still making their way into the area, but man, they had to get people out of here in a hurry. That is the entrance to Tempe Beach Park that you see back there, and still a pretty decent plume of smoke coming from that fire. Now, what's interesting, we were talking to some of the police officers out here. If the people who were in there exercising this morning and had their cars parked in there, they had to get out of there in such a hurry, they weren't able to get their cars. So they have to sit tight and wait to get permission to get back into that area to get their cars, because this was shut down so quickly. So here's a view for you down Rio Salado Parkway, and you can see still a lot of activity that will remain that way. I want to bring in Jacob Levin, who lives in the area. You said you had no idea what was going on until just a little bit ago. What did you hear to alert you that this was happening?
Yeah, so I live about a block away, and I heard the helicopters right outside my apartment and immediately looked up the news to figure out what was going on and walked down here and found out that all this had happened this morning.
Pretty interesting. You've lived down here for 2.5 years. A lot of activity. You see trains coming across that bridge all the time.
Yeah, all the time. I walk almost every morning underneath that bridge at about 7 a.m. typically.
Because you've lived here so long, I want to get your perspective on the amount of activity. I mean, we've been talking all morning long about how quickly they evacuated the area. Normally, this time of year, how much busier would it be down here, even with the construction that's happening?
Oh, especially early in the morning with it being so hot, it gets very busy in the morning walking around Tempe Town Lake and underneath that bridge in particular.
So you also work in the area, or you work in Chandler, so you have to make your way out of this area pretty soon, but that should be good in that direction, right?
Yeah, correct, yeah. But it seems like they blocked off all the roads, and I don't know what's happening with the train right now, blocking off University.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess. Give yourself some extra time. That is the name of the game this morning. As Aaron, he said, if you don't have to get into this area, just sit tight and let them get this cleared up. But again, a lot of people do have to get back in here eventually to get their vehicles out of that parking lot. But everything is closed down. You know what, you guys, they've been doing so much construction anyway, and then in addition to this, it really is a mess. There's closures all over this part of Tempe, so avoid the area and let's let them get this cleared. We'll send it back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Heidi. Well, we'll continue to follow this breaking news, and you can get the latest updates on your Arizona's Family News app. We'll be right back with more Good Morning Arizona.
Look who's in the Jeopardy vault.